Barabar Caves, in the hills of Bihar, carved deep into ancient granite in India, lies a mystery polished to a mirror sheen. These are the Barabar Caves, carved more than 2,300 years ago. Their stone chambers are so smooth, so geometrically precise, that they reflect light like glass and bounce sound like cathedrals. Archaeologists call them religious retreats. But some see something far more ominous. Ancient bunkers meant to survive an apocalypse foretold thousands of years before the nuclear age. In a land where ancient stories speak of weapons brighter than 1,000 suns and cities turned into glass, the idea doesn't seem as far-fetched as it should. The four main caves fit into a single low ridge, yet each feels like a prototype engineered to a different blueprint. Dated to around 260 BCE, during the reign of Emperor Ashoka, the Barabar Caves were excavated from solid granite. Yet the interiors of Sudama and the other polished chambers gleam like machine steel. A mirror polish achieved supposedly by hand. LiDAR scans in 2022 confirmed a level of flatness rivaling modern machine tooling. This mirror-like finish, known as the Mauryan polish, appears in no earlier Indian architecture and almost immediately disappears. The caves feel less like shrines and more like prototypes, an experimental technology suddenly perfected and then abandoned. According to Ashoka's inscriptions, they were dedicated to the Ajivikas, a mysterious sect of hardline holy men who believed every event in the universe was fixed by fate. On the rock, the word Ajivikas has literally been hammered out in places, as if someone tried to chisel the group out of history after the fact. One cave stands apart. Lomas Rishi, with its carved procession of elephants approaching stupa emblems, has no Ashokan inscription. Its interior is unpolished and abruptly abandoned. The unfinished inner chamber is about 16 feet across, a circular cell at the end of a rectangular hall that feels less like a chapel than a sealed vault. A layout that's led theorists to compare it to a pressure-resistant shelter, a kind of fallout chamber. Proponents point to passages in the Mahabharata, India's great epic, with some translations describing a weapon so powerful it blazed like 1,000 suns, scorching earth, boiling rivers, and causing hair and nails to fall out. Textbook radiation symptoms. Could these caves, some argue, have been constructed as sanctuaries in anticipation of a nuclear-scale war? Inside, the cave's acoustics amplify chants into vibrating waves, their interiors staying cool even in brutal summer heat, as polished surfaces bead and repel moisture on contact. In their isolation, cut into twin hills more than a mile apart, is the eerie logic of deliberate redundancy. Like a primary site and its backup, a few writers link Ashoka's suppression of dangerous knowledge and the disappearance of Ajivika scriptures to a forgotten catastrophe. They note a lone cousin cave at Sitamarhi, carved in the same style and polished to the same impossible sheen, as if the experiment briefly spread beyond Barabar before being shut down. Most archaeologists reject these doomsday theories, but admit the caves are a technological leap with no clear origin. Whether these were shelters from a real ancient catastrophe or monuments to a philosophical one, the Barabar Caves remain even now like sealed instructions from a civilization convinced that the future would need them. Vitrified forts scattered across the lonely hills of Scotland. These are ancient ruins that shouldn't exist. Their walls aren't merely crumbled. They are fused, stone melted into glass, rubble transformed into blackened slag. It's as if some ancient hand reached from the sky and pressed a blowtorch to the earth. At Tap O Noth, fused rivers of rock run down the hillside. The stones were melted at temperatures hotter than volcanic lava, and somehow achieved 2,500 years ago in the Iron Age. But by whom? And for what purpose? These are the vitrified forts, more than 200 scattered across Europe, with at least 70 in Scotland alone. Their prehistoric enclosures perched high on defensible ridges, their dry-laid stone ramparts partially liquefied into a glassy mass. No mortar, no cement, just fused rock, sometimes smeared, bubbled, and slumped like lava. Early researchers argued they were the cores of extinct volcanoes. Others thought they were evidence that a mysterious incendiary weapon, something like Greek fire, an early chemical flamethrower, had been used on a biblical scale, or that mirrored Archimedes-style death rays focused sunlight on the walls. Later, fringe writers upgraded the weapons. Perhaps these forts were ground zero for an ancient atomic war. Vitrification, the process that melts rock like this, requires prolonged, controlled heat of around 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That's within the range of Iron Age furnaces used for metalworking, but far beyond what a bonfire can do, especially on an exposed hilltop where the wind steals heat every second. In the 1930s, archaeologist V. Gordon Childe and engineer Wallace Thornycroft decided to test the idea. They built a 6-foot-high wall with a timber skeleton and a core of crushed basalt, then piled 4 tons of scrap wood against it and ignited the whole thing. After hours of roaring fire, the wall collapsed, but the buried core had partially vitrified. Iron Age builders, given enough wood and patience, could indeed melt stone, but only with enormous deliberate effort. Later, volcanologists studying vitrified walls at sites like Finnavon found that while the heat weakened large stones, it fused the finer particles into a dense, glassy mortar, stronger in some cases than the original wall. Was this a clever and purposeful Iron Age engineering trick? Not all agree, since the process could also weaken or collapse the wall entirely. Others see the melted stones as evidence of a brutal attack. Some forts even show signs of ritual destruction after battle, perhaps a deliberate display of power by conquering invaders. Imagine a captured stronghold turned into a roaring ring of red-hot stone that glowed for days. In Celtic myth, there are gods with flaming weapons like the war god Lugh and his fiery spear. Some researchers wonder if those tales preserve a memory of ancient superweapons, real or imagined. No evidence of unusual radioactivity or nuclear blast signatures has ever been found. Just rock turned to glass. Whatever melted these forts did not do so by accident. And until we know why Iron Age builders harnessed such extraordinary heat, vitrified forts will remain what they have always been, the signature of a forgotten catastrophe, etched in stone. Hoska Castle. It's a castle so strange that it was built with its defenses facing inward. A fortress with no kitchen, no water supply, and no reason to exist except to sit atop a hole no man could fill. A pit so deep, they say it swallows not just stones, but time itself. The solution? Don't build a fortress to keep the apocalypse out. Build a bunker to keep it in. This is Hoska Castle, the plug on hell itself. In the deep forest of northern Bohemia, 30 miles from Prague, Hoska Castle rises from a rocky sandstone cliff. Built around the year 1280 by King Ottokar II, it breaks almost every rule of medieval castle design. There were no nearby trade routes, no border to watch, no village to tax. There were no outer fortifications, no well, only a rainwater system. When it was finished, no one actually moved in. For years, the upper floors had no stairs leading down to the courtyard. From some windows, there's nothing to see at all. They're just frames over solid wall. On a map, it looks like a stronghold. Up close, its walls weren't built to keep enemies out. They were designed to contain something within. According to the Czech Chronicle of 1541, the land beneath Hoska harbored a yawning pit. The chronicler Václav Hájek notes a 9th-century wooden fort here was abandoned because a nearby crack in the rock released many spirits that tormented travelers. Locals said the pit devoured anything thrown into it. They claimed monstrous hybrids crawled out at night. Bullfrog men, wooden beasts, a headless horse that never made a sound. Attempts to seal the fissure failed. Stones simply vanished. Historian August Sedlacek later recorded a local legend in which a condemned prisoner was offered a pardon if he let himself be lowered into the abyss and report back. He didn't last a minute. When they pulled him up, he was screaming, hair gone white, face aged beyond recognition. He died 2 days later. So they built a chapel directly over the hole, an architectural cork jammed into the bottle of damnation. The chapel was dedicated to Archangel Michael, the warrior who cast Satan from heaven. Inside the chapel, frescoes depict Michael slaying the dragon. But another image disturbs art historians. A female centaur aiming a bow with her left hand, a symbol linked to Satan in the Middle Ages. No one knows why pagan iconography appears in a Christian sanctuary. Could it be a warning sign for what lay beneath? Some now call the chapel floor the Zatka, the plug. The Nazis seized Hoska during World War II and, under the code name Bergen II, turned it into one of several depots for looted books and manuscripts. Later writers have speculated that elements of Himmler's occult collections may have passed through its halls, while locals whispered about strange lights and spread rumors of dark rituals. After the war, visitors noticed a concrete slab where an older hollow or depression was said to have been. For some, it was proof of a darker story, that the Nazis had opened something beneath the castle and had been forced to seal it again. Today, the castle is quiet once more. The chapel stands above the sealed crevice, its frescoes flaking, its air ominously still. Visitors lean close to the ancient floor, listening for the faintest noise. Sometimes, if the guides are being honest, they hear something. A fortress built in the middle of nowhere, defenses facing inward, a chapel as a stone lid, and underneath it all, a hole the villagers once called the road to hell. Derinkuyu underground city. Beneath a quiet town in Cappadocia, Turkey, someone hid an entire ancient city 18 levels deep, big enough for 20,000 people. And then the world forgot it existed. For millennia, it sat there, sealed and silent, like a doomsday bunker waiting for its next catastrophe. It only woke up in 1963, when a man renovating his basement knocked down a wall and expected more storage space. Instead, he found a hidden room, then a corridor, then a stairwell, then a shaft dropping so far it swallowed the beam of his flashlight. Within days, locals realized the unthinkable. Their homes were sitting on the roof of an underground metropolis, 280 feet down, roughly the height of a 28-story skyscraper. Derinkuyu was carved by hand into soft volcanic rock. It holds stables, schools, chapels, wineries, kitchens, armories, and neighborhoods connected by a maze of tunnels so narrow an invader would have to approach single file. Massive stone doors, circular slabs weighing up to 1,000 pounds, could be rolled into place from the inside, locking out armies and raiders. They sit in carved tracks with a single small hole left to jab a spear through. The deeper you go, the more Derinkuyu feels engineered for more than war. A 180-foot shaft funneled fresh air throughout the city and doubled as a well. one that could be cut off from the surface to prevent contamination. More than 50 smaller vents once threaded up to the fields above, disguised as ordinary pits and courtyards. Each level could isolate itself, and the lowest floors held churches, classrooms, and gathering halls. Wine presses show this wasn't a weekend shelter. People planned to stay underground for months. You don't carve a grape-treading pit and rows of storage vats in a panic. You carve them because you expect life to go on while the sky is on fire. The oldest confirmed artifacts point to construction by the Phrygians around the 8th century BC, but the truth may stretch deeper in time. Some scholars argue the Hittites built the first chambers in the 15th century BC. Others, more provocatively, suggest a timeline aligned with the Younger Dryas, a global freeze sparked by a volcano or comet around 12,900 years ago that plunged temperatures across Europe by up to 10 degrees. In climate terms, that's like shifting London to northern Norway in a geological instant. If the world above turned lethal in the span of a decade, an underground refuge, one connected to other cities by miles-long hidden tunnels, begins to look less like paranoia and more like survival. There are myths, too. In the Zoroastrian text known as the Avesta, the god Ahura Mazda instructs Yima to build a sealed, multi-level underground enclosure to preserve humans, animals, and plants against a deadly winter. The text even itemizes which creatures to save. It's likely coincidence or poetic memory, but the resemblance to Derinkuyu is uncanny. And there are more cities, over 200 across Cappadocia. One discovered in 2015 beneath a hilltop fortress may even be larger, and construction crews only found it because bulldozers kept collapsing into empty space. Some passages are wide enough for 3 people to walk abreast. Others appear to link Derinkuyu to Kaymakli, 6 miles away. Derinkuyu asks a question no one can quite answer. What were they hiding from? Invaders? Climate collapse? Mythic winter? Or more troubling, did they build these cities knowing the catastrophe would return? Longyou Caves. The first sign that something was wrong was the staircase. In 1992, 4 farmers in eastern China, about 180 miles southwest of Shanghai, drained a bottomless village pond and, instead of mud, uncovered a perfectly carved stone stairway descending into total darkness. Then another staircase surfaced, and another. Whatever was down there wasn't natural, and it wasn't small. They'd opened the gateway to 24 enormous underground chambers, a construction feat so vast that 35 million cubic feet of rock, enough to fill 400 Olympic swimming pools, had somehow been removed without leaving a single pile of debris. All of it hidden beneath farmland smaller than 3 city blocks. Longyou Caves, as they came to be known, are a mystery so cleanly executed it borders on unnerving. Each chamber is the size of a modern airplane hangar. Some ceilings soar nearly 100 feet high, about a 10-story building, buried. Each wall is laser straight. Each pillar stands precisely where its twin stands in the next cavern. Even though the caverns never connect, on every surface, walls, ceilings, even the undersides of staircases, runs the same inexplicable signature. Parallel chisel marks, hundreds of thousands of them, etched in identical angles and spacing as if executed by a single tireless hand. In some chambers, a single wall is banded from floor to ceiling in this pattern, with no slips, no corrections, no visible practice layer. Archaeologists estimate the caves were carved around 2,000 years ago, during or just after the Western Han Dynasty. That would place them in an era capable of monumental works. Yes, But nothing in the historical record mentions removing a mountain's worth of stone to create a honeycomb of underground halls. China recorded eclipses, comets, grain taxes, even strange omens in the sky. No imperial edict, no local legend, no stray poem, just silence. And that silence has fueled theories. One line of speculation, often repeated by historians and local guides, sees Longyou as a hidden barracks or wartime warehouse, an ancient bunker large enough to shelter a small army. The evidence? The uniform layout, the self-contained drainage systems, the strategic elevation on Fenghuang Hill, and the impeccable preservation that suggests the caverns were meant to withstand time, water, and war. In several cases, shallow channels cut across the floors into stone basins the size of bathtubs, as if designed to catch and control seeping water. Some chambers even include engineered slope features more reminiscent of protective architecture than ceremonial space. Then there's the most extravagant interpretation. In 2014, Dutch engineer R.M. de Jong proposed Longyou as a royal subterranean palace built as protection against a returning comet, its chisel bands encoding ancient memories of catastrophe. He treated the angles of the grooves as sky coordinates, a kind of stone star chart wrapped around the walls. Yet, whether one leans toward military secrecy, imperial engineering, or apocalyptic preparation, the hard facts remain irresistible. No tools have ever been found. No debris from excavation has ever been located. No soot marks suggest lighting, even though the deepest chambers are pitch black. No graffiti from bored workers. No evidence of habitation. Just empty megastructures carved with impossible precision. In the end, the mystery of the Longyou Caves is not just how they were built, but how a project of this size, one that may have mobilized 1,000 workers for 6 years, could vanish from history. That's a workforce large enough to build a small pyramid, then erase every order, receipt, and rumor that it ever existed. Perhaps they were a bunker, perhaps a palace, perhaps a warning. Or perhaps the greatest secret of all is that an entire civilization once built something extraordinary, then, for reasons we may never know, chose not to remember it. Do you think these ancient builders were preparing for invaders or something even stranger? Let me know in the comments. As always, thank you for watching Dark 5. Like and subscribe to continue exploring the greatest mysteries of this world and beyond.